G'day, and welcome to the AOS Coach sneak peek into the 2022 Daughters of Khaine Battletome that Games Workshop were kind enough to send to me in advance before it hits the shelf to check out, but I'm under no obligation to do this review. They haven't seen this video before it goes live. In this video, I am going to focus on the new battle tactics, grand strategies, core battalions, points, and key war scroll changes with a match play focused. And if you came here looking for things like allegiance abilities, battle line options, your various enhancements like spells, prayers, and artifacts, you can find this already on the channel in another video. They have been separated to make them a little bit easier to digest. And as I previously mentioned, this book is full of art, narrative, path to glory, a sweet map of Ulgu. You'll also get that unique code when it comes to using the AOS rules in the new app. But let's get into the good stuff and look at what's changed between the old book and the new book. Starting off with your new grand strategies and battle tactic options, you will get 4 new faction-focused grand strategies to choose from. They are Bloodbath, Conquered in the Name of Khaine, Bloodthirsty Zealots, and Naught But Destruction. Bloodbath requires all enemy heroes and monsters to either have 1 wound allocated to them or to have been slain, and all of your other enemy units on the battlefield must have at least 1 model slain. Conquered in the Name of Khaine needs you to have a friendly Avatar of Khaine or Cauldron of Blood wholly within enemy territory. Your Bloodthirsty Zealous requires all friendly units to either have fought at least once during the battle or to have been destroyed. Finally, Naught But Destruction requires you to have 1 defensible piece of terrain that is wholly within enemy territory, or if there is no defensible terrain, your opponent picks 1 piece of terrain and you need to demolish it by the end of the game. Now, if I had to pick one of these grand strategies and not pick something from my battle pack, I'd have to go with Bloodthirsty Zealots because it is relatively achievable. However, I'd have to make sure that all of my minor heroes aren't just sitting in the back buffing up my snakes and witch elves and sisters of slaughter. I'd need to make sure they go in and fight at least once. I'm not really a big fan of some of the others. Bloodbath is a perfect example of one that I do not like because it is easy to lose if your opponent can heal, or they got something like Emerald Life Swarm, or they use it heroic, depending on how much they're damaged, but maybe they can heal back up to full. Whatever it might be, that would stop you from scoring your grand strategy. So keep that one in mind. Some of them I like, some of them mostly I don't like. There are 6 faction battle tactics to choose from, in addition to the ones available to you in your battle pack. Clash of Arms is scored when 3 or more friendly units make a charge move in this turn, and you will get a bonus point if 2 or more of those units were either Witch Elf or Sisters of Slaughter. Cruel Delight is scored when 2 or more friendly Khinerai units move using either the Fire and Flight ability or the Fight and Flight ability this turn. Tides of Blades is scored if there are 2 or more units from your starting army wholly within enemy territory at the end of the turn, and if 2 or more of those units were Witch Elf units, you will score an extra victory point. Executioner's Cult is scored if there is a friendly High Gladiatrix on the battlefield, and you will complete the battle tactic if there is an enemy hero slain by the Killing Stroke ability of the High Gladiatrix. Hatred of Chaos requires you to play Hagnar or Keltnar, and you'll score it if 2 or more Chaos units are destroyed this turn. And then finally, Unexpected Attack is scored if a friendly Khainite Shadowstalker unit uses its Shadow Leap ability, which is the teleport, and then makes a charge move in this turn. And surprisingly, when I looked at these battle tactics, there was no ones that were focused on snakes. I thought that was a really interesting play. So I guess the incentives are trying to swing you towards your Witch Elves, your Sisters of Slaughter, your High Gladiatrix, even your Shadowstalkers. There is plenty of chaos in the game, so I could see Hatred by Chaos being popular if you are running Hagnar or Keltnar. And if you are running 2 or more units of those Khinerai Heartrenders, I can see this being an easy battle tactic, while on the other side, Shadow Leap with Shadowstalkers being able to hit a charge from Night Out is very much a risky play. So I'd definitely be looking at ways to speed up or be able to get those pluses to the charge roll. +1 from your blood rights table is probably not going to be enough. It's not a high success rate, but look for other ways as well to increase the charge. There are 2 new core battalions that you can use in match play, Viperic Guard and Shadow Patrol. Viperic Guard is for our snake lovers out there, and you will get an extra artifact. You will need to take Morathi-Khaine and the Shadow Queen. You'll need to take a mandatory Bloodwrack Medusa or the Ironscale, and you will need to take a mandatory 2 Blood Sisters or Blood Stalkers. And there is an option to either get an extra 2 minor heroes in there, as well as up to 4 more Blood Sisters or Blood Stalkers. The other option would be Shadow Patrol, and they are all mandatory options. You'll need to take 2 units of Doomfire Warlocks. You will need to take 4 units of either Khinerai Heart Renders or Lifetakers, or a combination of them, whatever you want to do. And if you do so, there is either 2 options actually. Shadow Patrol allows you to either be unified to become 1 drop, or you could get yourself a free at the double or forward to victory if you choose the swift option as opposed to the unified option. I wouldn't run Shadow Patrol because I don't want to run 2 units of Doomfire Warlocks and 4 units of Khinerai. If I could take Khinerai as battle line, maybe I would, but probably not still. That's me personally. Viperic Guard is neat, but I would be probably competing against things like Warlord and Battle Regiment, and assuming that Battle Regiment doesn't change in the next General's Handbook, I think most Snake players would prefer to go 1 drop over getting an extra artifact. And look, things might change, things are coming up down the line, keep that in mind, but both good options. I love that Morathi can be in the Viperic Guard, but again, might be a tough take when it compares it to, again, Battle Regiment. I'm now going to look into all of the key warscroll changes that I noticed and try to highlight as many of the most impactful ones as possible. Starting with Morathi-Khaine, she has the same move, the same save, the same bravery, and the same wounds that she had in the old book. Heart Render has potentially changed. I know her render's gone up and down over time. The last memory, it was only Shadow Queen that was Ren -2, but either way, her Heart Render is Ren -2. Everything else stays the same. Her casting is still the same. She can still cast 3 spells and unbind 2 of those a turn. But what surprised me when it comes to her magic is that she has lost the ability to get +1 to her casting, dispelling, and unbinding rolls. Her commanding presence, Black Horror of Ulgu, the 1 soul, 2 bodies has stayed the same, and the worship through bloodshed range has reduced to 18 inches. Everything else stayed the same. At the other side of the 1 soul, 2 bodies is the Shadow Queen. Her move, save, bravery, and wounds remains the same as it used to. However, her monster damage table has changed from 5 levels to 4 levels. So what that means to you is that in the past, her profile would degrade after she took 4 wounds. I think it was on the profile. Now, her abilities start to reduce when she's taken 7 wounds, which is a massive boost to Morathi-Khaine and the Shadow Queen. Her missile weapon is still the same. As I mentioned, Heart Render is now 2. It's formerly Ren 2. Please don't FAQ it back to Ren 1. Fury of the Shadow Queen, which is those +1 attacks to friendly Khinerai and the Medusa, they're still there, which is a good unit as long as she is within 3 inches of an enemy unit. And the Iron Heart of Khaine, which allows her to only allocate up to 3 wounds a turn, is still the same. I was surprised to see Morathi-Khaine's command ability essentially stay the same. Yes, it went from 24 to 18, but if you would have asked me what this command ability would have looked like before getting the Battletome, I would have predicted that this would have been a once per battle command, much like the Stormcast Holy command. But no, I can use it every of my hero phases, which is probably a big win for Daughters players and probably a violin moment for our opponents. The other surprise was seeing Morathi-Khaine lose her +1 to casting, dispelling, and unbinding. And considering that she is a powerful sorceress and now become a goddess, I would have predicted that she would have kept her +1 to cast, which makes things like Mind Razor very tough to pull off. The most pleasing change of the 2 probably would be the Shadow Queen having a higher bracket, which means that she's not going to degrade as quickly, considering she has no ability to heal. So being able to keep her profile for a lot longer is a big win for us. Next are our snake heroes, and we'll start off with the Bloodwrack Shrine, which has the same Aura of Agony, the same Bladed Impacts, the Bloodwrack Stare, and the Enfeebling Foe. It did lose Whisper Claw, and that is your 6s to hit equal 1 mortal wound. But it did gain in its place the Melusai kin, which at the start of the combat phase, you can pick one friendly Melusai unit wholly within 12 inches and add one to the current battle round for when it comes to Blood Rites. So it's going to boost up your Blood Rites a little faster. The changes are consistent across the Bloodwrack Medusa. It too did lose the Whisper Claw. It too kept the Bloodwrack Stare and the Enfeebling Foe. They're both the same. And it also did gain the Melusai kin to get that +1 to the battle rounds for your Blood Rites. Your last snake hero, your Melusai Ironscale, has the Blood of the Oracle and the Gory Offering the same. What has changed is Turn to Crystal is now a 2+ where it used to be a 3+. The last change is Wrath of the Scathborn, which as a command ability, you issue it in the charge phase, and it allows you to charge even if you ran or shot in the same turn. Now, that last part's an interesting one. It allows you to charge even if you shot, so I wonder if there's a change coming in General's Handbook 2022. We'll pause that one for a minute. But from memory, this command ability allowed you to run 2d6 and then charge. Don't quote me on that one, but either way, this one has certainly changed. Now, looking at your elf heroes, you will notice there is crossover between the foot hero and their equivalent on Cauldron of Blood. So starting off with the Hag Queen, it has lost the Priestess of Khaine, which was the 3-up prayer chant, though prayers are now all going to be 3-ups anyway. And your Rune of Khaine prayer, specifically on the warscroll, that has disappeared, but the Touch of Death prayer remains. The big change to your Hag Queen is Witch Brew. Now, this is true of your Hag Queen on Cauldron as well as your Hag Queen on foot. I'll get to that one when we look at the Cauldron in a second. And the other change on the Hag Queen is that the melee attack is now D3 damage. I think it was just 1 in the past, but now it's D3. Let's look at that Cauldron of Blood, because I'm sure you're wondering what on earth has happened to Witch Brew. It too has lost the Priestess of Khaine chant off the warscroll. Again, I mentioned 3-up prayers are always going to be in play anyway. And the Rune of Khaine prayer has disappeared. It still has Touch of Death. It has gained the Altar of Khaine, which allows you to have +1 to your chanting rolls for friendly Daughters Priests wholly within 9. That's only on your Cauldron of Blood. The Bladed Impact and the Blood Shield rules are still the same. But now, the moment of truth, what you wanted to know, Witch Brew. Witch Brew is at the start of your hero phase, you can pick one friendly Daughters of Khaine unit that is wholly within 12 inches to drink the Witch Brew. A unit cannot use the sippy cup more than once in the same hero phase, but if you do so, you get to add 1 to the number of current battle rounds when determining the abilities from the Blood Rites table until the end of the turn. Now, this does stack. So if you go Hagnar and Sippy Cup, that would be a +2 to the current battle round. So it's not one or the other. It does stack. The other change on the Cauldron of Blood is that the Idol of Worship that used to give you a +1 to your bravery is no longer there. But as well, the Avatar of Khaine no longer requires an animation. So in the past, it would take battle round 3 or a prayer to animate the Avatar. Now you can use it from turn 1, no prayers required. The Slaughter Queen lost the Rune of Khaine and the Dance of Death prayers, but in its place gained the Dance of Doom, which it did have a similar or same name prayer that allowed you to fight twice from memory, but what it now is same as what's on the Slaughter Queen on Cauldron. We'll talk about that in a minute. And the Orgy of Slaughter is still the same. But let's look at the actual Slaughter Queen on the Cauldron of Blood. It too did lose the Rune of Khaine and the Touch of Death prayer, so very consistent across the board. You gain the Dance of Doom, which is a prayer with an answer value of 3, and if answered, the Strike First effect is going to apply to this unit in the following combat phase. You did also gain that Altar of Khaine like the Hag Queen on a Cauldron of Blood, which is going to give you that +1 to chanting rolls for Daughters of Khaine priests wholly within 9 inches. You still keep the Bladed Impacts, the Blood Shield, the Orgy of Slaughter, and the Pact of Blood. They didn't change. And much like the Hag Queen on Cauldron of Blood, you did lose the Idol of Worship for that +1 bravery, and your Avatars of Khaine don't need to be animated. I'm not really sure how I feel about the Sippy Cup. I think mostly it's a good change because on one hand, I am getting access to a better Blood Rights ability earlier, the +1 to wound, the +1 to hit, even the 5-up ward, getting them much earlier, especially if I was to go into Hagnar and get an extra +1 to that. But I will miss the re-rolling to wound rolls, and as well as probably the Battleshot community. I think if they're incentivizing hordes and they're incentivizing more Witch Elves, I'm at more risk of losing to Battleshock because I don't get the +1 from the Cauldron. I can't get the immune to Battleshock from the Witch Brew, and it's probably going to incentivize me less to run multiple larger Witch Elf units or Sisters of Slaughter. Maybe I'll roll one and a couple of small units just so I've got one inspiring presence. But I love the fact that I don't have to worry about animating the avatar anymore. And I also like that the Slaughter Queen's Dance of Doom prayer allows me to strike first. I think it's a really nice little addition. Yes, I like the mini Morathi ability, but again, I'm not surprised that it's disappeared. Looking at your troop changes, first off is your Witch Elves, and you'll notice that the Bladed Buckler, which is the shield, now changes the save characteristic to a 5-up, where previously it just gave you +1 to your save. So now you're going to benefit from all-out defense and Mystic Shield and cover, which is great. Your Bladed Bucklers still deal mortal wounds on a save roll of 6, which is really nice. Your Frenzied Favor is now a +1 to wound when they're wholly within 12 inches of a Daughters of Khaine totem. Previously, that was a hero. It's now a DOK totem. So your Cauldrons, for example, and your Champion, Standard Bearer, and Hornblower still stay the same. The Sisters of Slaughter have had mostly, in fact, all of it that stayed the same. Your Dance of Death is the same, which is your 6-inch pile-in. Your Bladed Buckler, which is the same as what I just previously mentioned. Your Champion, your Standard Bearer, and your Horns, all are the same. The melee profile still the same, and you get to benefit from the Bladed Buckler ability that I just mentioned with the Witch Elves, which is a nice touch. When it comes to your Khainite Shadowstalkers, you'll notice that the save characteristic is now a 4, which is improved. I think it was a 5 previously, but your move, bravery, and wounds remain the same. Shadow Leap, which is the teleport around the board, still stays the same. Your Champion still has the same ability. Your missile weapon hits have improved. They're now hitting on 3s, but the rest still are the same. But you did lose the Cursed Missiles, which was the 6s to hit would inflict a mortal wound. And you also lost the Harness Shadow, which was a -1 to be hit in melee. But look, 50-50, I really like the -1 to hit in melee, but it also gains some nice things. And I think the +1 to their saves, and now being a 4, is going to make them a much more durable battle line. Finally, you've got the Avatar of Khaine. The Avatar of Khaine has the same move, the same save, the same bravery, the same wounds, the same melee, the same missile weapon. The Avatar of Khaine giving a +1 to chanting is still the same. Now, one thing it did gain that I absolutely love is his Amicus of Sorcery and Sacrifice, which gives you a 5-up ward for this, I think, is it 9 wounds? The other ability it's gained is Wrath of Khaine, and what this basically does is it makes the Avatar of Khaine a monster for the purpose of monstrous rampages. So it has a limited range of monstrous rampages. What do you mean by that? I mean that it allows them to do a stomp or a smash to rubble. It's not going to get a roar, and it's not going to get a titanic jewel. The Avatar of Khaine can only stomp or smash to rubble, but also it can't be picked as a target for a monstrous rampage. So it's essentially its own Hunters of the Heartland, which is a very nice addition. And as I previously mentioned with the Cauldrons, it doesn't need to be animated anymore, which is a massive win. Now, I really like that the shields are now a characteristic improvement rather than an automatic +1 to your save. So it means that, with a Mystic Shield or all-out defense or even a cover, it means that I could get my Witch Elves down to a 4-up save, which is very nice. I am a little bit sad to lose the -1 to be hit for the Shadowstalkers in melee, and the Avatar of Khaine got a massive boost with a 5-up ward and gaining those selected monstrous rampages. And as I mentioned, not needing to be animated is a big win for them, because there's nothing worse than either having to use a prayer in the early rounds to get access to a unit I'm paying for, or having to wait till battle round 3 to actually then animate it. Looking at your Blood Sisters, they have the same move, save, bravery, wounds, melee weapons. They gained the keyword Scathborn, and Turn to Crystal is now a 2+ instead of a 3+. When it comes to your Bow Snakes, your Blood Stalkers, again, they have the same move, save, bravery, wounds, missile, melee. They too gained the Scathborn keyword. Your Khinerai Lifetakers have the same Descent to Battle, the Fight or Flight ability. It is still a 4+, so unlike your Heart Renders, which is an automatic move if they've shot, they still have to roll a 4 up to make the move. You did gain a boost to your save characteristics, so now the Lifetakers have a base save of 5+, while their move, bravery, and wounds stay the same. They did lose one of their abilities, which you'll be a little bit sad about, which is the Death of the Wind. And that used to give you +1 to your damage and -1 rend if they charge. So your melee Khinerai might be a little bit less attractive. Your Khinerai Heart Renders have the same profile as what you saw in the Arena of Shades, which was that battle box between Nighthaunt and the Daughters, which, to remind you, they too had a improvement to their save characteristic. It's now 5. They have the same move, bravery, wound, missile weapon, descent to battle. All of that stuff is the same. Their melee weapon did drop to a 1-inch range. Otherwise, they lost the Heart Piercer shield, which was really just built into the characteristic of 5+ save. But the big change there and the big win for the Heart Renders is that in the past, as I mentioned, they used to be able to make a free 6-inch move after they shot on a 4+. In Arena of Shades, that got removed. So now, when I say removed, the dice roll got removed. So when it comes to the Heart Renders, if you either deploy them on the table or drop them from the sky, whatever you descend to battle, whatever it might be, after they've shot, you can then make a guaranteed 6-inch move after they've shot. So you could either retreat from combat or potential combat, or you could move onto an objective or whatever it might be. So very, very cool. When it comes to the snakes, look, there's not really a lot to talk about. Your big thing was gaining the 2+ Turn to Crystal, which used to be 3. Khinerai players probably already knew that they were getting a save characteristic improvement. Again, Arena of Shades kind of showed that off. And the big winner, as I mentioned, was the being able to retreat or move anywhere 6 inches after the Heart Render's shot, while your Lifetakers still require the dice roll. So certainly for me, I'd probably go the Heart Renders over the Lifetakers personally. Finally, the Endless Spells, and yes, I know I didn't do the High Gladiatrix or the Doomfire Warlocks or Morgraith. I'll let you enjoy those surprises when you have the Battletome in your hands. But when it comes to your Endless Spells, look, majority of it's still the same. Your Blood Viper still has the same summoning. It's still predatory. It's still Fanged Strike to do the auto slay. One of the big boosts probably is the Bloodwrack Viper gaining very similar rules to the Avatar, which is the Monster of Blood. So at the end of the charge phase, the commanding player can use the Endless Spell essentially as a monster. So you can do Stomp or you could do Smash to Rubble. It can't do Roar, it can't do Titanic Duel, but you can Stomp or Smash to Rubble with your Blood Viper, which is very cool. Otherwise, your Blade Wind is essentially the same. It's same summoning, predatory, and unnatural edge. And then the Heart of Fury, same deal, same summoning, same Locus of the Murder God. I really like that new limited Monstrous Rampage. I think it's neat. The Blood Viper is always a popular endless spell if you're going down that route for Daughters. Now, there were a lot of movements when it comes to points. You'll notice that all the endless spells went down in points. You will notice the Witch Elves had a small decrease of 5 points per 10. You'll notice the High Gladiatrix got a decrease. That kind of threw me off, considering the High Gladiatrix only come out, seems like, only recently. But she went down. A bunch of things went up. Things like the Avatar of Khaine is now 155 points. Your Shadowstalkers are 150 points. A lot of your heroes went up somewhere between 5 and 20 points, give or take. Morathi 2 went up 20 points, and she's now at 680 points for the pair, which I think is relatively fair. I think many of the points changes were warranted, especially as you saw a bunch of improvements across the board. I am surprised that snakes didn't get touched, considering they are the more competitive side of Daughters, but you are seeing some Witch Elf and Sister of Slaughter incentives in like your battle tactics and your green strategy. So maybe they're trying to incentivize them through other means other than just like nerfing snakes and, you know, heavily discounting Witch Elves. But as always, the true list tech is going to come out once the FAQ is released, which is usually 4 to 5 weeks after the Battletome hits the shelves. Probably around that same time, we will have the new General's Handbook. So keep that in mind, you know, if you are thinking about picking up Daughters for the first time. You know, something might look really good now. Who knows what the incentives are going to look like? But we do know that the General's Handbook, at least for the first 6 months, is going to focus on battle line. You know, who knows what that means? So we've finished the video, we've finished the series. What do I think about Daughters? And I guess overall, they are looking competitively strong, both as a faction and in the meta. I think they're going to do really well. Your snake-focused lists are going to continue to thrive. They were good in the old book, and I think they're still going to be new in the new book. There are some new tools. You have been updated for 3rd edition. But the foundation of your Blood Sisters and Blood Stalkers and your Ironscale and the combination of heroes is still the same as it always was. There are some changes to the Ironscale, like I mentioned, that 2d6 run that you lost. That'll hurt a little bit, but I don't think it's going to hurt you that much. For me, I am a massive Witch Elf fan. I don't know if you noticed, I've only mentioned it like 100 times, but I am excited because those have not done really well. And if you've listened to me talk about Daughters in the past, where I've tried to run heavy Witch Elves, I've been generally frustrated due to the lack of random and the lack of there's a lot of things I was frustrated about with the Witch Elf builds. But between the new rules and the abilities here, as well as like the High Gladiatrix, the High Gladiatrix has made a big difference when it comes to the Witch Elf heavy builds. I am excited to run the Witch Elves and Sisters of Slaughter, but I do need to keep in mind that the Battle Shock immunity that Witch Brew used to give me will probably restrict how I build. Maybe I'll have one unit that's double reinforced, and most other units are probably units of 20 at most. I think there's some real interesting grand strategies, battle tactics, core battalions to choose from depending on how you build your list. For me as a Witch Elf player, the battalions are useless to me, but as a snake player, I could see some real benefit, as I've previously mentioned. But one thing I haven't spoken about was your ally options. And I thought that was really interesting because your allies are Cities of Sigmar, Idoneth Deepkin, Lumineth Realmlord, Stormcast Eternals, and Sylvaneth. And anyone with an eagle eye will notice that Stormcast is back as an ally option. So in the past, you did have them as an ally. Broken Realms Morathi, when Morathi betrayed Sigmar to take over Anvilgard and turn it into Harkuron, you noticed that you lost Stormcast as an ally. However, at the end of the Broken Realms series, Morathi did support Sigmar in defending Excelsius down in Gur, and I think Sigmar in favor kind of said, yo, you can keep Anvilgard. So they're now back as an ally, which is good for anyone who wants to run dragons or a Frostheart Phoenix, or, you know, tap into eels or whatever it might be from your mostly elf, but not just elf kind of allies. The points adjustments weren't aggressive, so I probably wasn't expecting Morathi to keep her command ability the way she did. I thought at least it would be a once per game or a melee only change, but I probably would be surprised if she goes up in points over time. I probably would have expected keeping the command ability around 700 or more, considering like Kragnos and other things are around 700, but 680 is still a steal. Ultimately, I think the next General's Handbook, which is literally coming around the corner like June or July, is going to mean those battle plans and the overall battle pack is going to incentivize new list construction. If we do move to that battle line meta and we lose our monster bonuses, that probably is going to play into Daughter's strength. You don't have a lot of monsters. I played around with allying in like a Charybdis. I've tried bringing in a Frostheart Phoenix to get more monsters into the list, but ultimately that's taking away from other things that are natural to my faction. Equally, at the moment, there's a whole bunch of Daughters of Khaine units that are on the priority target list. So that means you're giving away extra victory points. And I'd be interested to see if that's going to change with the new book. Surely Snakes and Morathi are still strong, so surely they will stay on the priority targets list. But let's keep an eye on Warhammer Community to see if that changes. But hey, that's enough about me. I have given you a massive list, I guess, or thoughts of what's coming up in this Battletome. I would love to hear from you in the comment section. As always, how are you thinking about Daughters now? Was there any changes in the points or the war scrolls that's getting you excited? Are you going to scale back your snakes and bring in your Sisters of Slaughter? Are you going to run your Shadowstalkers as battle line? Let me know in the comment section what you're thinking about with Daughters of Khaine. And as you know, we will do list talking after the FAQ is dropped. Thanks for sticking around until the end. I hope you found that video interesting and you walked away with a few new ideas. If you did, I would appreciate it if you hit like on the video, as well as left me a comment. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. The conversation will continue over on Discord, so link is down below in the episode description if you want to join the Discord and continue the Age of Sigmar conversation. I want to give a massive shout out as well to these absolute bloody legends, these champions who have continued to support me through Patreon or YouTube members. That is going directly into supporting the maintenance and the growth of this channel. So thank you very much, guys. Much appreciated. And until next time, roll more sixes.